Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ba'd. Inshallah we'll take some Q&A later on around 11:30, 11:40. We've got 1 hour, we need to conclude at 12. So last 15-20 minutes we'll take questions. Just an announcement for the sister side that there's questions for both sides, but specifically for the sister side, that try to keep the questions related to the topic, because the sisters have a special, I don't know if you go to the afternoon event or not, but there's a specific, I have a talk just for the women, for the sisters later on, and then there's a half-an-hour Q&A session that is taking place, isn't it, around the bar or something. So if you have, other than the topic of questions, then keep those questions for that time, inshallah. And even the brothers, just try to keep the questions. Don't ask me about some Islamic banking, whether it's halal or haram, house, mortgage, We're talking about divorce, separation, and marriage, and then someone says, okay, can I buy this riba house? So try to keep it limited to the topic. Now, divorce and separations. The notes look longer, but I've written them on more detail, that's why. Until now, it was just short bullet points, so it doesn't mean that we've got a lot, like more pages to cover. It's just that the notes from now have been written in more detail because they do require, it's like explaining more, because they require more explanation. So this, I need your attention now. Yeah, this next session is quite a bit to learn. A bit of fiqh as well. First of all, number one, divorce in Arabic, what do we say? What is it called? Talaq. Yeah? Everyone heard of the word talaq? Divorce in Islam, you call it talaq. Some people, there's 3 words. There's talaq, there's khula', and then there's something called fasakh. Have you heard of these words? A lot of people get confused. Talaq and khula' are 2 separate things. I have so many times, how do I get a khula'? I say, what do you mean, divorce? Okay, how do I get a divorce? Khula'. I said, talaq or khula'? Like, yeah, khula', talaq. I said, no, these are 2 separate things, brother, sister. Khula' is something else, talaq is something else, and fasakh is something else altogether. Talaq is when it's a normal divorce, which is pronounced and given. Khula' is a specific type of divorce where a woman wants the divorce and the man is not giving the divorce. It's a divorce where she gives her dowry back or she buys the divorce and they both agree on a set, like for the woman to pay her. There's rules for that. Okay, you give me the dowry back or give me like $500 and then I'll give you the divorce. So they both agree on a type of financial type of thing. That's called khula'. Talaq is just normal. There's no such a thing, agreement like that. And number 3 is fasakh. And fasakh is like a cancellation, dissolving of the marriage. This happens from Islamic court or it happens from the qadi. They just take the case and then they do fasakh of nikah and they cancel the marriage. So I don't need to go into all the details of all of these 3, but just here, divorce and separation. First point to understand is divorce and separation is permitted in Islam, but only as a last resort, especially when children are involved. So the first point here to remember is that sometimes some Muslims think that talaq is like haram. Talaq is not haram. There's a hadith in Sunan of Abi Dawood where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Abghadul halali ilallahi al-talaq." The most disliked of the halal things, still halal, according to Allah, in the sight of Allah, is talaq. So talaq is not haram, it's not sinful, it's not evil, it's not bad. Like yesterday I said, some prophets, Ismail, peace be upon him, had a divorce in his marriage. So there's good, practicing Muslims, Sahaba, Sahabiyat, people have undergone divorce. It doesn't make you a bad person, it doesn't make you a cruel person, it doesn't. In fact what? It makes you sometimes a better person. Because you learn from your mistakes. And this is another issue in our community, that it's a taboo to marry someone who's been through a divorce. Rather, you probably get a better person in marriage who's someone who's been through a divorce. Not always the case. In our community, someone's been divorced, where the woman, more so for women, like a woman who's been divorced, like nobody wants to marry. But even men, like no fathers will give their daughters to a man who's been married before and he divorced. Very rarely. Unless like a divorced woman, a divorcee, and they will marry one another. But like, if one has not been through a divorce and the other one's been through a divorce, it's like highly unlikely. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all his wives that he married, bar one, were all widows or divorced women. That's why it wasn't for his personal, like lustful reasons. A'udhu billahi min dhalik. There was a reason behind every single marriage. Except one. Which wife? Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, may Allah be pleased with her. Every other wife, widow or divorce. It was common in those days. So I actually think that people become better after a divorce. After they've been through an experience. They've been through, like they've experienced it. And they know where not to make what mistakes that they made, not to make those same mistakes. So divorce is halal, permitted, it's not evil, it's not a taboo, it's not something that makes you evil, bad. Okay, so that's the first point we need to understand. However, it should only be used as a last resort, especially when children are involved. And I always mention this, that especially when children are involved, because it's going to affect the children. Don't be hasty in divorce. So you need to get the balance right. On one hand, people think divorce is what? Evil. On the other hand, people they think divorce is like eating cookies, like every other day. Every other, it's like just divorce, Tim Hortons, divorce, Tim Hortons. You probably realize I love Tim Hortons. Oh, that's the only good thing you have here, probably. That's probably a better way to say it. So, it's something that you should use as a last resort. What does that mean? Especially when children are involved. If a couple have no choice but to go their separate ways, so you, as a last resort, what does that mean as a last resort? I need your attention really. This is a really important topic. Yeah, this is one of the most important topics. This final one, so give attention. As a last resort, you've tried everything. You've had counseling, you've given time. I say to people sometimes, okay, give like 6 months that look, okay, we're going to try to improve our marriage, okay. 1st of July, until there, we'll see. Is there any progress? Go and talk to people, get an imam involved, get some family members involved. Try to change your ways, look at the reasons what's causing marriage problems. Try your utmost best, especially if you have children. If you don't have children, then it's slightly easier, okay. But if you have children, you don't want these children to be living in a way where their parents are separate. It affects them, it definitely affects them. So try your absolute best. Once you've given everything in trying to save this marriage, you've tried your best, then it is halal as a last resort, no problem. You can. If a couple have no choice but to go their separate ways, then no problem. But then look, they should do so angrily. What does he say? Anyone reading these notes? They should do so loudly, please. Is anyone else in this room, or is it just me? They should do so pleasantly. And, what did he say? In an amicable manner. I actually talked about this yesterday night in my talk after Maghrib. In this hall here. On the screen. Ihsan. The Quran says, الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان. Talaq is 2 times. After that, hold on to the marriage, and if you can't, if you want the divorce, then make sure the divorce is with ihsan, with excellence, in an amicable manner, as a human being, not as an animal. I'll tell you one thing, this, the problem, look, listen to this carefully. There's an Islamic divorce, and there's a haram, crazy divorce. There's an Islamic divorce, and there is a crazy, mad, maniac people's divorce. Islamic divorce is what? It's carried out in ihsan manner, excellence way. You know, Islam says, like I mentioned yesterday, a man should give a small parting gift to his wife on divorce. Just like mahar is a gift, welcome pack gift. Ihsan of divorce is called mut'ah. You must have heard of the word mut'ah. There's one mut'ah which is that temporary marriage. That's another mut'ah, but there's another thing called mut'ah in the Quran. That mut'ah is a small gift that the husband, the soon-to-be ex-husband, gives to his soon-to-be ex-wife upon the termination of marriage. So basically, what is an Islamic divorce? Okay, Assalamu alaikum, this is my last salam with you. Sorry, it didn't work out. You know, I had faults, you had faults. Good luck for the future. Allah give you a better husband than me, inshallah. Best of wishes. If there's any children involved, yeah, amicably, well, no problem. Children, I mean, I'm going to talk about children, it's coming. And she says, yeah, it didn't work out. Whatever the reason was, maybe my fault, your fault, our both faults. We were not incompatible. We were not compatible. May Allah give you a good wife in the future. No hard feelings. I'm going Hajj, forgive me. We ask only for forgiveness when you go Hajj. This is a time to seek forgiveness. You've lived 5 years in a marriage. How much sins you might have committed? Because it's possible. Seek forgiveness at the time of talaq. Seek forgiveness. That look, any hard feelings, I may have shouted at you, I might have swore at you, I might have said something. Forgive me for the sake of Allah. And then the man says, okay, wait a minute, here's a bag for you. Small gift. And give a last kiss if you want to as well, before the talaq. When I don't do that, they might say, no, we're staying in the marriage. Okay. It doesn't have to be that, much. But this is an Islamic divorce. And that gift is called mut'ah, and the Quran says, حَقْ مَتِّعُوهُنَّ. This is not mentioned in some hasan, weak, da'if hadith or some narration of the Sahaba or something. This is an ayah of the Quran, this gift. مَتِّعُوهُنَّ عَلَى الْمُوسِعِ قَدَرُهُ وَعَلَى الْمُقْتِرِ قَدَرُهُ مَتَاعًا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ. The people of Ihsan give this gift. So mahar is a welcome gift, mut'ah is a departing gift. This is an Islamic divorce, amicable divorce. So the point I was going to make here, and time is very short, but the point I wanted to make was that, one thing leads to another. So the beginning part of this point, that divorce is permitted only as a last resort. When people think that divorce is haram, this is the root cause why we don't have good Islamic divorces, is because people think it's an evil thing. When you think something's evil, then you have to feel bad about it. You feel embarrassed about it. When you feel embarrassed about it, you have to blame someone. So in the community, the husband will blame who? The wife. The wife will blame who? The husband. The husband's family will blame the wife's family. The husband will say, no, she was actually very, very good, but the mother was the one, the bad one. She spoiled it. She was alright, the mother spoiled it. And she will say, yeah, he was okay, but I think the mother-in-law was a monster-in-law, she's the one who spoiled it. They both point fingers, both families point fingers at one another, become lifelong enemies. Enemies, you were supposed to be married till death do us part, now it's become enemies till death do us part. Until we don't die, we're just going to be enemies. Why they've become enemies? Because they thought divorce was haram. So when it was haram, then someone has to be blamed for this haram, evil that's taken place. You don't have to blame anyone if there's something nice and food, everyone eating. Who are we going to blame for eating food? No, nobody. It's a good thing. So therefore, don't think it's a bad thing. And if you don't think it's a bad thing, there's no need to blame anybody. Just move on. No one's to blame. When divorce takes place, the community does so much gupshup, chitty-chatting. And so much, oh, do you know what happened? And this happened and that happened. Just mind your business. So much ghiba, backbiting, tail-bearing, all major haram sins. A Muslim is someone that the affairs of others don't concern him. طُوبَى لِمَنْ شَغَلَهُ عُيُوبُهُ عَنْ عُيُوبِ النَّاسِ. We have our own faults. Like, we don't have time to talk about the faults of other people. Anyway, so that's the first point. Point number 2, I've already mentioned it. It is wrong to start pointing fingers and play the blaming game. The Sharia encourages the husband to give the wife a departing gift known as mut'ah. Number 3, one of the greatest crimes is to use children as pawns. This is P-A-W-N-S. Yeah? Before we were talking about P-O-R-N-S. This is pawns. Against one's ex-spouse. This is one of the greatest haram, one of the greatest sins. Whether it's the man or whether it's a woman. But in our day and age, in the Western, laws of the Western countries, it's because they favor the mother most. Therefore, this can occur more so from the women's side and from her family. And seriously, I've written about this, I've talked about this. One of the greatest sins, haram crimes, a woman or a man, for that matter, you can commit ever, regardless of how many tahajjud and qiyamul layl and how much long beards and scarves and hijab and niqab you wear, if you are not letting your own children have any connection with their own mother or father, then seriously, there's no benefit of all of that. It's a major haram, absolutely one of the greatest crimes ever in Islam and in humanity. Non-Muslims don't do that, many of them. Never ever should there be a reason where you stop your children from having any connection with your ex. Look, you two had a problem. Husband and wife had a problem, but the problem wasn't between them. Don't let your problems make them suffer. Every child needs a father and a mother. You might have a problem with your ex, but that doesn't mean that you make your children suffer. It's a major haram, major haram. Yes, there may be some exceptional cases. Now, normally what happens, look, one of the greatest crimes is to use children as pawns against, okay, I read that. Children need the love and care of both parents. They have done no wrong in missing out on one parent. Not only is this being unjust to your ex, this is oppression on the children themselves. You think they're young children, you think that you're being nice to your children. They will despise you when they grow old. I know so many cases. My mother did not let me have any contact with my dad, and then when the boy was 25 years old, he hated his mother. I know a case like that. Absolutely hated because he found some reality afterwards or something. People use excuses that no, he's a bad man. No, first excuses is like the children don't want to see their father. You are influencing their mind yourself. Half the time, you should encourage them. Look, we are separating, but you go and see your dad, go. Go for the weekend. Go stay down there, have some connection. You need a dad. Normally, their mind is full of shaped, the way they think, it's all manipulation. The children can't make a decision that I don't want to see my dad, or I don't want to see, it could be, I don't want to see my mother. It's because the other side, they are influencing them. And number 2, sometimes excuses like, oh, it's very, very bad. Well, because you've had a divorce, that's why you're thinking he's very bad or she's very bad. Let an independent judge decide. Someone who, let them decide, take your case. Is he an absolute mad, crazy, alcoholic, druggie, that if your son goes to live there, he might just murder him in the middle of the night? Okay, then of course, there should be no connection. This is haram, thumma haram, brothers and sisters. It's major sin, major sin. And sadly, a lot of so-called practicing Muslims are involved in this. In the UK, it's huge. They pray 5-time prayers, they fast, they have like everything, they cover, they wear hats and have big beards, and they wear niqabs and hijabs and everything, they're in the mosques and everything. But when it comes to child custody after divorce, they all become crazy animals. I feel very strong about this topic because I know so many families, so many that have gone through this, and it's really bad. I feel for the children. They've done no wrong. A child who is deprived from a father, his stepfather can't be your real father. Deprived from a father, a child growing up, or a mother, of course, both. But I'm saying because normally this happens where the mother's family stops the child from seeing father. You might think he's happy, he's playing around. You grow up without a father's love and care and attention. It doesn't make you the same human being, seriously. Of course there are exceptions. But people need the love of their own, both parents. A father and a mother. Does it happen sometimes here that the father's side do this as well? Like in England it's mainly the women's side, but that they don't let the child see their mother. Does that ever happen? That happens as well? Well, I mean, that is really bad. Allah, give us guidance and protect us. It's not good. It's not good. It's oppression on the children. It's not good. Anyway, moving on. Some fiqh of divorce. First point: a prolonged separation does not result in automatic divorce. Some people think that if you've been separated for 20 years, automatically you're divorced. Islamically, you're not divorced. A separation is not a divorce. You could be separated for 445 years. But there's no divorce. For divorce to occur, there has to be a divorce to occur. How it will happen, we'll talk about it. So, even if the couple were to remain separated for many years, rather, Islamically, a marriage is terminated by actual talaq, divorce, financial settlement, I talked about this, in return for a divorce, which is called khula', or annulment or cancellation or dissolving in a court, which is called fasakh. So, this is how it happens. Number 2, this is now some rules about talaq and divorce. Merely thinking about divorce or having baseless misgivings, waswasa about it, does not constitute a divorce. Because remember, the man gives a divorce, we'll talk about that just in the next point. So if you're just thinking about it in the mind, it doesn't result, as long as one does not actually issue a divorce verbally or in writing. A simple point. Number 3, obedience of parents. A lot of people ask this, like, do you have to obey your parents in divorce? No, you don't have to. Look, parents have one right which is absolute, which is respect. Regardless of whatever they command you to do, or regardless of whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, whether they tell you to, command you to offer salah or drink alcohol. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكْ بِمَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. If they command you to leave Islam or commit shirk or drink alcohol or whatever, the Quran says, don't obey them. فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. However, still صَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Still in the dunya, treat them with honor and respect. So, the rights of parents, which is respect, is absolute. Regardless, you just have to honor them and respect them because they're your parents. But obedience is not always necessary. And there's a whole fiqh of obedience. Sometimes obedience is fard, sometimes it's wajib, sometimes it's makruh, sometimes it's permissible, like it's your choice, you can obey them, you don't have to, it's up to you. Sometimes it's mustahab, sometimes it's haram to obey them, like if they tell you don't offer salah, to obey them is haram. So when it comes to divorce, do you have to or not? It depends on each situation. You know, there was this, the hadith, Umar radiallahu anhu, there's actually a whole book on, I've actually written a whole article online, Obedience to Parents, on my Dar al-Ifta website, many years ago. It's about 6, 7, 8 pages with all the evidences and the fiqh rulings on the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali. Do you really, there's various scenarios, do you have to obey your parents when they tell you to go for a divorce? So worthwhile reading that. But there's another book in Arabic as well, حكم الطلاق تحت إطاعة الوالدين في حكم الطلاق, in Arabic. So it's a topic. Abdullah ibn Umar was commanded by his father, Umar ibn Khattab, to divorce the wife. I can't recall this incident properly, but somebody came to an imam and said, look, Umar commanded his son and he accepted. So you have to obey your father. So that imam said, is every father like Umar? That's another question as well. Is every father like Umar ibn Khattab? So it depends why your parents, sometimes it's just for their own reasons. Because they're not getting that breakfast in the morning from the mother-in-law. If she's telling you to divorce because she's not getting that breakfast in the morning, then that's for her own reasons. So anyway, obedience of parents is one of the most important obligations and social injunctions of Islam. Parents deserve one's utmost respect, and their rights come after the rights of Allah, of course. However, it is not always necessary to obey them when it comes to divorce. It is recommended and necessary, according to some imams, to obey one's parents only when they order divorce out of genuine concerns and not selfishness. So it is recommended, if you determine that it's for genuine concerns, it's not selfishness, it's not for their own personal reasons, they genuinely, and everyone knows, you as a child, as a son, daughter, you will know that this is, they genuinely, and they're mature and understanding, they're not just emotional. Sometimes they're genuine, but they're emotional. You understand? Sometimes they are genuine, but they're not really thinking right. They're mature, they're understanding, they're looking at everything properly, and then you realize that they are really giving me good advice that they think is best for me to divorce. Then in that case, it is recommended according to most imams, which means it's mustahab, but still not fard and wajib. And some other imams, they said in that case it will be wajib. This is also, and then another condition, provided that the son himself does not fear being harmed or falling into the unlawful. Another additional condition. So it's recommended or wajib, but also subject to the condition that you yourself, you don't feel harmed. Like you don't feel you don't really want to divorce. You think that, look, I will listen to my father, mother, and if I divorce my wife, then what will happen? I'll be like so sad and stressed and anxiety. No, that's harm to yourself. So now that recommendation is no longer recommended. Provided you don't fear that you will be harmed, or you don't fear falling into the haram, because you might think you'll start doing zina after that. So again, you shouldn't be divorcing. This is the summary, and like I said, I've got a whole article on that. Moving on quickly, the next point is really important. The right to divorce has been given to men by the Creator of men and women. The right of divorce has been given to the men by the Creator of men who didn't create women. Women were created by God. Yeah, they were created. They've said yes, they were created by God. Due to many reasons and wisdoms. Like, look, at this point, I need to explain this. There's no time. But this is a very important point to understand. Islamically, and this point I actually use as an example to a lot of the students of sacred knowledge, people who are becoming students and graduating as alim and alima, and people who are studying in madrasas. So whenever I talk to them, even when I was in New York, I gave a talk to all the students in the Darul Uloom in New York. I remember this as an example. The point I normally, when I talk to students, what I normally talk about the point is that as students, try to learn the art of explaining difficult, complex matters of Sharia to the masses. One thing is learning knowledge. There's some students here, I don't know if there's some students, but one thing is seeking knowledge, the other is learn the art of how to explain difficult concepts. Difficult means people are not easy, the feminist movement, or even some men, women, they are not able to easily digest. Now, you could be just coming up from a madrasa, oh, this is in the hadith, haram, no, okay, woman, go in the kitchen and eat some biryani, cook it and finish. There's a way of explaining things. Look, you get two extremes. One extreme is when people become extremely liberal, they start changing the traditional understanding of deen. I don't know if there are students here. Are there any students here? Studying madrasa? No? You? Anyone here? There's few? No? Okay. So sometimes it's very liberal. So we say, okay, Quran says, وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. You know, وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. So some people are saying that means travel with them, go for a honeymoon. They've changed the meaning of وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. Like completely changing the meanings of the Quran. And the other came out from madrasa, lagao, beat your wife up. That's a wrong way and that's a wrong way. Stick to the traditional way, but explain in a what? In a modern context, and that's the art. So that was a principle. As an example, I use this example. The example and the point is that in Islam, we say divorce in Islam it is, and it's mentioned in the Quran, divorce is the right of the man. Okay? Now, someone who's just come out from a madrasa will just say, okay, the women will say like, do I have no rights? No, women, no right. No. Divorce, husband's right. Only the man gives a divorce. Sorry, sister, you're a sister, you were born a woman, I can't help it. Sorry. Man only gives the divorce in Islam. On the liberal side, there's people who change this. No, that was like medieval ruling. And even if he changes the meanings of the Quran, like no, women give divorce as well. And that's it, a woman can divorce. Now, somebody asked me this question once I was in a university. It's really important, and this is how I explained it. This is an important point, that's what I'm explaining. There was a sister, I still remember, an Italian sister. She was, I think, she only embraced Islam like a few months, 2-3 months before. So she wanted to understand. So she said, I don't get this in Islam. It's equal right, it's not fair. Why does a man have a right to give a divorce? Are you with me understanding? It's a very important point. Why does a man have a right to divorce and why doesn't a woman have a right to divorce? I said to her sister, who told you that only a man has a right to divorce? Because yeah, that's what the ruling Quran says everywhere. All the Muslims I've spoken to, the man gives the talaq. The woman says talaq to the husband, there's no divorce. I said, who told you that? Because that's the ruling. I said, no. So first, you start thinking, right? Is that the traditional ruling? I said, yeah, traditional. I follow traditional Islam, of course. Who told you only the man has a right to divorce? So now she was like thinking. Then I explained to her, I said, look, in Islam, the right of divorce is given both to men and women. However, the method of giving divorce for men is different to the method of giving divorce to the woman. The man's way of divorcing is different to a woman's way of divorcing. That's the only difference. Both have a right. And rather, the ruling is more easy for a woman. Why? And what is the difference? The difference is this, and I'll explain to you. I explained to her, I said, it's actually so good for women that this is their method. Always. Are you understanding what I'm saying, yeah? You're not hungry and your brain's not working. How does a man divorce? The man, just by like a bit of anger, says, talaq, 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 done, finish. Forever your marriage is ended, khalas, gone. Even by mistake, he says talaq, or sometimes he gets a bit, talaq, talaq, finish. It's gone. That's it. A woman can say 200 million times to her husband, wake up, talaq. Breakfast, talaq. Lunch, talaq. Do this, talaq. Sometimes the women give like 200 divorces, talaq, 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 I love you. 200 talaqs and then just pay upset. Allah's created men and women differently. Women, like I was saying yesterday, they're more emotional. It's their nature, it's the way they are emotionally. Women, come on, you have to, it's normal. A woman goes through a monthly period that makes them more emotional. That's why the ruling is different. Because they kind of excuse, this is why there's no salah at that time. So even emotionally, their hormones change. And that time, they don't really mean when they say talaq. They don't mean it. Like I was saying yesterday, half the times they don't mean a lot of the things anyway. But especially when they're on their periods, they don't mean them. When they are on their periods, then husbands just don't worry. They don't mean any of the things. Then let them finish and then think about it. So they might give you talaq 200 times. So I said to her, look, don't you, I explained to her sister, do you know, there are differences. She goes, yes. Do you get emotional? She goes, oh, I get very emotional. When I'm in my periods, I get really pains and I get my hormones are all over the place. So I said, Allah has really favored you, blessed you. If you said by mistake that to your husband, talaq, your marriage is gone, finished. Lucky, I'd rather be in your state that I don't have to worry. Do you know how many men are depressed? Not depressed, but like waswasa. I have hundreds of men who have waswasa. I don't know, I was sitting, I don't know if I said talaq, I said talaq. Because one slip of the tongue and it's gone. There are so much anxiety with, sisters, this ruling doesn't apply to you at all. Like you can say it 4 billion times, take the subha tasbih, talaq, 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 it just doesn't matter. I'd rather have that ruling. The man just says it and it's gone, it's finished. So that talaq for a man is very easy because a man is supposed to be more controlled over the situation. But sadly, a lot of the men act as though they have they have periods. That's what's happening in this day and age. A lot of men, the way they become emotional is like they're having periods. It's crazy. Like, go crazy and give talaq, and then he's scratching his head, and what did I do, and what happened? So I asked one man, did you go through some periods? How many days was it? 7 days or 8 days? So anyway, so that's the difference. A man's way of giving talaq is very easy. As far as women are concerned, women can also divorce, but their method and way and manner is a bit longer. It's not easy. Like it's not straight away. So it's a good ruling. You don't have to worry by just saying it and then saying, oh, I've changed my mind. You don't have to worry. It's a slightly longer process. So if a woman wants a divorce, then first of all, she tells her husband, insists with her that, look, it's not working, you should write it down or say it to me, He will insist with him, persist with him, get someone involved, tell him to give the divorce. If not, then go to a council or an arbitrator or a Sharia council and get the marriage. Or khula, I'll give you mahr back. And if even that doesn't work, then you can go to an Islamic council or a qadi or a court, and this is where you do fasakh of nikah. So it takes 3-4 months. For a man, it takes 3 seconds. For a woman, it takes 3 months, and that's the only difference. And it's easier that it takes 3 months. At least it makes you think within 3 months. This is what Islam says. The way a woman gives a divorce is different to the way a man gives divorce. And the easier ruling is for women here, not for men, even though it sounds that it's easier for men. It's not easier, it's actually so much responsibility. Is that understood? So, this is the meaning of the right to divorce. This does not mean that I've written here in any way, the husband may abuse this right and harm and mistreat his wife without giving her any means to end the marriage, etc. And then after that, number 5, I'll just give you the summary, and then you can read it yourself. This is mainly for men, and there's less men here today, so we can just leave it. Because this rule, you don't have to, you need to learn about it because you need to know what your husband said to you, but you just realize that a woman can say anything and that's not divorce. So this rule of what you said with your mouth only applies to a man. So there's what we have, divorce is of there's 2 types of words. There's one when the man says a clear word, talaq or divorce. Okay? With that, look, there's 2 types of divorces. You have one divorce, listen to this carefully, it's called revocable divorce. Revocable, raj'i, reversible. When a man says talaq to his wife, what happens? What happens? One revocable divorce comes into existence. What does that mean? She starts the iddah, waiting period. She starts the iddah. Are you with me? Come on, you guys don't sleep, please. I need some. If you're bored, then we can finish it. Bored? This is important. I know it's a bit heavy, but we're going to take questions as well. But I need some. A man gives what talaq to he says talaq to his wife. What happens? One divorce, reversible divorce, and iddah starts. In that iddah, because it's a reversible, the man can take back the divorce, can just say, I cancel it, or they can be intimate and it gets cancelled. Within the iddah is 3 menstrual periods, as we'll read, he can cancel that. Once he cancels it, he doesn't have to do new nikah. They don't have to do a new nikah, it's just cancelled. Once it's cancelled, back as husband and wives again. But remember, it's cancelled but not forgotten. So now you've only got 2 more left. It's like you've got a gun with 3 bullets. Well, I don't like to call it bullets, because I just said you need to give a gift and mut'ah, so divorce is not a bullet. 3 cakes. So you've given 1 cake, you've got 2 more cakes left. So though you won't get back to 3, you'll only have 2 more left. If after 2 years, the man said again talaq, 1 reversible divorce. Again, the iddah starts. As soon as the iddah starts, within the iddah, you want to get back together, just say I've taken it to you back, I've cancelled it, or just kiss one another and that's it, finished. But you only have 1 left after that. If you don't do that in that iddah period, you don't take each other back, then what happens? When iddah finishes, marriage comes to a complete end. But even after that, if you want to get back together, you can do so, but this time you will have to do what? A new nikah. You have to get married again. So in the iddah period, you just say, I take you back. And after the iddah, a new nikah. But remember, all of this is until it doesn't reach how many? 3. So in your life, in your marriage life, it's happened once, talaq. In iddah you took her back, or after iddah you did a new nikah. 1 gone. After 4 years, the man gave another talaq, whether he wrote it or he said it verbally. Within iddah he took her back, or after iddah, new nikah. 2 gone. That's it. No 1 more. That's it. Two chances. Finished. Now, ever in the future, the 3rd one, when the man says talaq, finish. Terminated forever. There's no taking back now. There's no, the iddah will start. You can't take her back after iddah, and after you can't get married again. That's it. Once 3 divorces occur, marriage is completely over. This is called talaq al-mughallada. This is why we need to remember that, look, a lot of people make a mistake. A lot of Muslims, this is a common mistake I've seen within Muslims. People think that in Islam you have to give 3 talaqs. Who said that? It's actually haram. It's called talaq al-bid'ah. You have talaq ahsan, talaq hasan, talaq bid'ah. The sinful talaq, according to everyone, is to give 3 divorces. 1 does the same job. Why are you being so generous and giving 3 cakes? 1 cake does the same job of the 3 cakes. You don't need to never, ever, ever, ever in your marriage bring the word 3 talaq. There's no need for it. The same job is done by 1 talaq. You give, even if you never want to get back together again, don't worry. Just give 1 talaq, let the iddah finish. Once the iddah finishes, it's completely over. She can marry someone else, you marry someone else. Finish. 1 does the exact same job. 3 should never be used. It's actually a major haram to give 3 talaqs together. So, these are some of the rules here. And then there's this kinaya talaq, which we can leave that. So this number 5, number 6 is basically explaining this. The most preferred method, ahsan, hasan, you can read it. It's quite detailed, that's why I've written. And then number 7, I will also mention, 1 divorce does the same job as 3 divorces. Number 8, speech and verbal utterance is not a condition. So look, the man doesn't have to say it verbally, it can also be in writing. So he writes it, text messages, sends it, an email, whatever. You don't even need witnesses. Look, talaq occurs. See, look sister, this is such a difficult ruling for a man. Whether he's angry, not angry, whether his witnesses are there, no witnesses are there. Your wife doesn't even have to be in your presence and you can give her talaq. The man just sitting at home and he says her name, or he talks to his friend and he says, you know what, I'm giving my wife such and such 1 talaq. Done, finished. Even if he spoke to himself, his friend wasn't there. As long as he said it, that is to his wife. If he said, I'm giving this phone talaq, then there'll be no talaq, don't worry. But if he said his wife talaq by himself, done. Sometimes something like that, he's just thinking how bad she is, and he's just daydreaming, and just, okay, I give her, the wife, 1 talaq. Done. It's a very difficult situation to be. Learn the fiqh of divorce in more detail. 1 talaq will be done. So it's also in writing. Number 9, it's about legal court. Now I'll just give you the summary of this. But you know, a legal divorce can be an Islamic divorce, and sometimes it may not be an Islamic divorce. It depends how it's done. So if, for example, the man files for the divorce, but remember, because the man has that right, that first right to divorce. So if he files for the divorce and the court goes ahead and makes the divorce happen, then Islamically that'll also be a divorce. If the woman filed for the divorce and the husband signed and agreed, again, it will be an Islamic divorce. But if sometimes the court, without the man's consent, goes ahead and gives the divorce, and he says no and doesn't sign and nothing, then that shall not be an Islamic divorce. It may be a legal divorce, but it won't be an Islamic divorce. You need another Islamic talaq for the man to sort of sign or agree or say it. And if he doesn't, then you just go to an Islamic court and get that divorce done. Having witnesses is not prerequisite, like I said, number 10. Number 11, the waiting period is obligatory for the woman. Observe it fully and not take it lightly. It's actually, you know, a lot of people think that iddah is only to see whether you're pregnant or not. That's not the only wisdom and reason. There are many reasons. You could be separated for 40 years and you get a talaq, you still have to do iddah. It's not just for that, it's for many wisdoms. It's a hikmah, Allah knows best, but there's many things like, it happens, iddah is when you get divorced, you have to do it. What is iddah? 3 complete menstrual cycles. That's why it's recommended for the man to give talaq when? Just before periods. To make the iddah as less as possible. Just before. A couple of days. So the first menstrual period will arrive. Then purity. Then the second menstrual period. Then purity. Then the third one. When the third one ends and she takes a bath, ghusl, that's when her iddah is complete. So that's the duration. What happens in iddah? What do you have to do in iddah? Cry all day long? No. Be sad all day long? No. Not eat pizzas and Tim Hortons? No. You can do anything and everything, no problem. What you can't do, number 1, you can't talk about marriage and take proposals, and you can't engage in marital talk with someone else. Number 2, you can remain clean. You don't have to wear black clothes and all of that stuff. You remain clean, everything. Be, pleasant, all of that's halal. But do not over-adorn yourself. So, makeup and all of that. And number 3 is like you need to stay at home as much as possible. Well, it's not as much as possible. You really need to stay at home unless there's a real need for you to go outside. Now, there's details about that, whether you're working, not working, if you can take time off, you should try to. So, there's rules about that. So that's what iddah is. And the husband is financially responsible to pay what he should be paying before, and then, when we say the husband is financially responsible, half of them not paying when they were married anyway, so they're not going to pay the iddah time, but they're responsible. What's this last page? It looks like... oh, okay, sorry. I didn't... Number 11, number 12, last point, 12 and 13. 13 I've already covered. What's number 12? Halala. Halala. Have you heard of this halala? The completely misunderstood concept of Sharia deen, which makes Islam a mockery in front of non-Muslims. Halala, the general misconception is that marrying another man, halala, is a solution provided by Sharia in order for the husband and wife to get back together after 3 divorces. This is totally, utterly incorrect. Once 3 divorces are pronounced, the marriage is over forever, get over it. Marriage is over, get over it. There is no getting together again. Halala is not a solution. Brothers and sisters, after 3 divorces, finish. Allah has made you a human being, given you 3 chances. That's why, take time. The first divorce happens after 5 years of thinking. A man who doesn't have periods. A man who has menstrual periods, then he'll probably just give within together. But if there's a man who doesn't go through menstrual periods, then it'll take him like a year to give, after so much thought and deliberation, issue 1 divorce. Then maybe a second after a year or so. So it's all with thought. Not like talaq, 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 crazy, like he's got menstrual periods now. After 3, the marriage is completely over. There's no solution in Islam. A lot of people ask, what shall we do now? That's it. Go and get married somewhere else. You know, when people ask me, 3 divorces are done, like, so what's the solution? I said, okay, I'll try to look for someone for you. That's the solution. You have to move on. There is no solution now. This marriage is gone, finished, ended forever. Ila yawm al-qiyamah. Maybe in the next life, Allahu A'lam, if you want to in Jannah. But in dunya, marriage is finished. Then they say to me, but I've heard something called halala. Who told you about that? There's halala. What is halala? The Quran says, حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ. So what halala basically is, that if there was a man and a woman, husband, wife, they were married, and they went through a divorce, coincidentally they divorced because of problems in marriage, they both took that as a final decision. She performed her iddah, observed her iddah, he moved on, she moved on. Then she afterwards coincidentally married another man with the intention of staying in that marriage. Some problems occurred there, and coincidentally that marriage also ended, and then she observed the iddah in that marriage, and then coincidentally the first husband, he also got married somewhere and something happened. Like, you know what, like, I think they both thought their marriages were bad, but they were both, the second marriages, they thought like the first one was better maybe. So he just randomly just sent a message, I heard that you got divorced again. Would you ever, think about like us getting back together? Then they can remarry. So there's another marriage in the middle. Then you marry as a new couple, and then that 1, 2, 3 starts fresh. It's like a new person. This is the meaning of حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ. What some Muslims have done, they've made what I just explained to you as what? You divorce your wife 3 times, you go and find someone, go and get married to my wife, have sex with her one night, give her talaq next morning, and give her back to me, and then I will get married to her again. That's crazy. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْمُحَلِّلَ وَالْمُحَلِّلَ لَهُ. Hadith of Abu Dawood. Allah's curse is the one on the one who arranges halala. Some religious people actually, a'udhu billah, it's really bad. So-called imams or scholars, so-called. They have halala companies. Like this one person I found out, so-called, he's not even learned or knowledgeable person, but people don't know who's a scholar and who's not a scholar. He's got a service of different women getting divorced from their husbands, like come with me, like I'll get married, I'll sleep with you one night, I'll give you a divorce, and they can go back to your husband. It's crazy. There was BBC had a whole documentary on this a while back, and I actually spoke to the BBC, and then they put my piece as well on that. This is how can it's mockery, making Islam into mockery, like divorcing your wife, making her marry someone else, and getting her to sleep with somebody else. Because you have to have sexual relations. The second marriage, sexual relations must occur, otherwise you can't get back to the first. How can even a man think that, okay, I would rather say, I don't want to get married to you again after that. You're arranging for her to sleep with someone else. So, halala, the only meaning of halala, I've explained all of this to you here, is written. Okay, last point, child custody. I've already talked about it, just read this. There's details of child custody, but basic point is that do not prevent your ex from having any connection, which is a major haram. I've already talked about that. And there's some rules that when a child is younger, the mother has a right of custody. When the child is until 9, 10 years of age, mother has a right. After 10 years of age, then the father has a right. This is the Islamic rule, but people can mutually agree in a different way. This is not necessary. Best thing is have a human, amicable divorce, discuss it, and just decide on okay, visit, weekends, or after every 3 weeks, we'll come and stay with the father, you can keep during the weekdays. Just have a nice, amicable sort of agreement of both parents keeping the children. But if there's a dispute, then this is the Islamic way, that the child until 10 stays with the mother, and then after 10 stays with the father. So these are the Islamic rules on child custody. You can read them as well, inshallah. Time is over and above. We'll just take some quick few questions. It's 12 o'clock already, subhanAllah.